Vetiva Research expects Nigeria's economy to rebound by 1.48% this year. They also note that the need to revitalize the economic growth will be the focus of the 2021 expenditure plan. And Mosope Arubayi, the chief economist at Vetiva, joins me now as we discuss Nigeria's path to recovery. Thank you so much for your time today, Mosope. And looking at the path to recovery, I'd like to start off first by looking at the budget, and I'd like to get what your take is on what the drivers could be for this projection you are making on the economy.
Okay, thank you very much, Kenneth. Thanks for having me. Um, as it stated in our report, I see a return to growth in 2021. My expectation is 1.48% on the back of 2020's favorable base and interventions by policymakers, though recovery may not be broad-based. In the agricultural sector, we believe it will continue to be constrained by insecurity and adverse weather conditions such as flood. The manufacturing sector may also be constrained by the usual suspects, weaker currencies, power challenges that translate to higher operational costs, depressed consumer wallets that translate to lower demand for manufacturing products, and so on. Recovering the mining sector may also be constrained by policy deficiency. We're aware that the PIGB is still pending, and this could limit growth stimulating investments in the sector, as well as OPEC production limits. On the flip side, however, we believe progress with medical solutions to the COVID pandemic bodes well for tourism, that is leisure and hospitality. We also expect that transport and entertainment sectors could also rebound strongly as tourism restarts. But sectors like the ICT, health, and logistics are projected to also have a good year. So with the large sectors that contribute the most to growth, having constraints to their output this year, and the much smaller sectors seeing strong rebound and positive development with the medical solution to COVID, we expect a positive but sluggish growth of 1.48% for 2021.
All right, now policy is going to play a major role in this recovery, and looking at the fiscal and monetary policy positioning, how do you think this is going to play out? What are your expectations coming into the year?
Okay, for monetary policy, I believe it's going to be largely accommodative because we still have external sector risks. Oil prices are not recovering as strongly. External demand, there's still uncertainty around it. So because of risks to the external sector, and there's also the need to stimulate growth, we believe the Monetary Policy Committee would be a lot more accommodative through the year. However, a worse than expected growth outcome going into 2021 may trigger a more bearish position from the Monetary Policy Committee. Expectation is that we could still see a somewhat slightly negative growth in Q1 due to base effects from Q1 2020, but progressing into the rest of the year, if the COVID if the second wave of the COVID intensifies and it affects domestic output, then we could see a more bearish monetary policy committee. However, from the fiscal side, we've seen clearly that the government is still pursuing an expansionary fiscal policy with the passing into the signing of the 13 trillion naira budget for 2021, which is 36% higher than what we had for 2020. The rationale behind this is to have as much money out as possible to stimulate domestic demand, but there's still concerns around sustainability of the deficit that is supposed to be financed in the budget. It's projected at 5.2 trillion or 3.6% of the GDP. We could see this worsen. We could see the deficit worsen beyond what is being projected, especially with uncertainty around the COVID pandemic. There's also uncertainty about distribution of the vaccine. Even if there's a vaccine and they roll out as quickly as H120, there are logistics constraints that are also being considered. So this could affect the recovery in external demand and it, by extension, weigh on the earning capacity of the government and ability to finance the 13 trillion budget. So we could see a situation whereby the fiscal position would deteriorate more than projected, and that will be adding to our existing not so pleasant debt profile.
All right, now looking at trade policy, we saw the AFCFTA coming to effect on the 1st of January, and I'd like to understand how Nigeria can benefit better from this trade pact going forward.
Okay, in my opinion, the AFCFTA presents an opportunity for Nigeria to deepen its industrialization by adding value to its exports in order to increase our market options and reduce reliance on Asia and Europe. We saw what happened with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, the government wants a comparative advantage in agriculture so badly, probably because most African countries are net importers of food, implying that there's an existing market for food export within the region. But we all know that there are structural impediments to productivity in the agriculture sector that make Nigeria's agriculture sector less competitive. So what is likely to happen with the coming into for the AFTA in the medium to long term is specific sector players will be able to identify opportunities within the scope of the agreements that they can take advantage of. Everything may not have been completely figured out now, but while implementing the agreement, I believe sector players will be able to identify opportunities in
All right, Mosope, thank you so much
neighboring
for your time.
countries.
Interesting times we're seeing for Nigeria here, and we'll watch and see how things play out. Mosope Arubayi is an economist at Vetiva.